Hi friends, welcome back to the Inside Out Shift. I am Evgenia Baikova, a Gallup certified strengths coach and business mindset strategist. I help women who've left corporate stop spinning and overthinking and start building businesses that work, feel good, and actually get paid. A lot of what we talk about here is the inside out part of entrepreneurship, the mindset shifts, the identity shifts, and the real time decisions that shape the businesses. And today's conversation is for you if you are ever wondered, how do I build something sustainable? Not just a business, but something that can actually hold growth, hold responsibility, and hold impact over time. And my guest today is Jamalia Brashears, founder and principal of JLB Advisors. Jamalia is a social impact strategist and philanthropic advisor who helps organizations become investment ready so they can absorb and sustain multi-year philanthropic and corporate capital. She has over 15 years of experience stewarding multi-million-dollar funding across economic mobility, workforce development, health equity, and community development. Through her work, she partners with nonprofits, foundations, public agencies, and financial institutions to strengthen leadership, infrastructure, data, and revenue systems so the impact lasts and scales beyond a single program. Jamalia, I'm so happy you're here. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to speak with you about these important topics. I'm also inspired by the work that you do.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yes. And we will start with the beginning. We will go back to that. What made you leave your 9 to 5 and take the leap into entrepreneurship?
There's a little bit of delay.
Sure. Yeah. What made you leave your 9 to 5 and take the leap into entrepreneurship? Was it a slow realization over time, or was there one clear, well, enough is enough moment for you?
Yes. No, that's a great question. For me, I've always been entrepreneur. I've had an entrepreneurship lens in all of my positions. And when I was working in philanthropy, I was all about innovation. And when I was a fundraiser at nonprofit organizations, I was also all about innovation. So I took an entrepreneurship lens to the way I did my work. And when you work within the four walls of an organization, you can only kind of push so far. And I came to realize as I grew in my expertise and as a thought leader that what I was called to do really didn't necessarily fit the infrastructure in which I was doing it in. And as I grew in kind of not just the four walls of the organizations, really great organizations that I worked in, but the more I grew in my expertise from being a thought leader, writing about philanthropic investment and impact investing and being on panels and speaking and writing articles, I realized that there's a voice that resonates above the infrastructure that I was working in. And I became more of an informal advisor, whereby I was to support a lot of organizations, not only speaking, but actually go within organizations and advise them on their infrastructure. So I became somewhat of an accidental consultant, and I realized I could actually leverage this and make a stronger impact on my own. So I really took my entrepreneurial lens and actually put it to work to test in the real marketplace.
And that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm also interested in the in-between season when you were building all the logistics and becoming the person who actually runs the business. What ended up being harder than you expected about the transition? And on the flip side, what came surprisingly easy for you?
I will tell you, there was a light that switched. I was actually working for a consulting firm. I worked for 2 consulting firms, and the last one that I worked at, I realized that's the very last consulting firm that I will ever work at because I can do this myself. There was one day that I realized that I was actually doing more leadership of the other consultants within this organization and really coalescing and kind of designing the clients that we were seeing and refining the infrastructure and cultivating relationships in a way that was kind of beyond my scope. And as the way the field was shifting and I was advising other consultants, realizing I could really be doing this on my own, a lot of wealth to an organization, one that's in mine, and I could actually monetize my own genius. And there was this one day whereby I was not only holding a large portfolio of clients while also informally leading without the title, mind you. I decided that I'm going to do this on my own. And there was a lot of fear in kind of doing the quiet resignation of that time. But I really had to lean into the fact that, one, I know this work on an expertise level, but I also know the infrastructure, what it takes to effectively lead a consulting firm, because I've been doing it. So the day I decided to do it, and it was a faith walk, that I wouldn't have any clients. And thank God I walked out on faith. And that same week, I was able to get my first client by putting it out there that this is what I'm doing, very fearfully. But in that same week, I got my first client, and it's been a long-standing client, a retainer for the last 3 years.
Nice. Well, this is great. And
but it's also in terms of the infrastructure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's about that day one, the infrastructure. I realized that there's so much that I didn't even know from being a solo practitioner, and what that really would look and feel like beyond the certification, but just how to really understand the actual operations of an advisory practice, what that looks and feels like. So I could definitely go into greater detail about that. And now that I'm at 3 years, I feel like I'm past the sea legs and have a stronger momentum.
Yeah, nice. And continuing the question, I usually ask about the mindset part of it, right? Because mindset is everything. And I'm just wondering, what mindset shift made the biggest difference for you as a new business owner?
For me, the mindset, I use the word faith walk often, because I realize that this is a walk in faith. Like, entrepreneurship is definitely a walk in faith and resilience of your expertise. And I also I often use the word monetize your expertise, because that's really putting a revenue model to what you're called to do. And I heard this phrase earlier today, and I was looking forward to sharing this, that the assignment that you're called to do isn't necessarily reflective of the system that you're in, the infrastructure that you're built in and around. And I realized that within the four walls of an organization, I really couldn't really be called to do and to serve the way I needed to do. So that was kind of the faith that really propelled me to do this entrepreneurship journey. So for me, the mindset one was, this is going to be a faith walk. That I have to really rely on a day-to-day basis, because ultimately there's people that are kind of fearful of your survival and like your sustainability. And knowing that, one, I had an expertise that I could share, but I feel like I was called to do this. And that validation came through me getting clients, one. And I think the biggest thing in terms of my mind shift is that I had to share what I was doing to build a community and cultivate not only clients, but an audience. And this is the biggest thing that I think kind of separates me from others when I would start talking about how I'm actually deciding to start this business, is that, one, I had to ignore the projection and the fear of others and really lean into, I'm called to do this, I'm going to do this, but I'm sharing my rough drafts with you right now. And I think that for me, it's important to really continue to talk about your growth at its infancy. And when I was doing that, sharing my rough drafts, from my business plan to reaching out to my network, sharing with my former colleagues what I was trying to do and plan to do, those now have become clients. Those have become my biggest cheerleaders. Those have become potential referrals. And they are more so invested because they were there at the very beginning when I was refining that model, refining the kind of business practice, refining even my offers. So I think for me, the mindset is, I'm going to share how I'm going to approach this business with my community, and not kind of hide it for fear of looking as though really what it is at its infancy. I think that there's strength in your infancy and sharing those growth pains and growth points.
Yes, 100%. And it seems like you found the way how to translate all the experience, all the knowledge that you have into something that you could actually offer in a very clear way. And you just mentioned that you reach out to those with whom you used to work with, right? And sometimes, not sometimes, but in many times, I see how those who are transitioning from 9 to 5 or corporate world into entrepreneurship, they're so scared about what they will think about, like what my former colleagues will say about me. I'm moving into something which is unknown to me, right? They're so scared about what others might think about them. But you did the opposite, and you found the clients, you found your cheerleaders in your former colleagues or in your network. And you mentioned how you landed your first offer, but also, I'm so curious how you put that together and how has your first offer evolved as you began working more deeply with funders, with other organizations?
That's a great question, because I say that I count my year one of business when I got my LLC. But I've been doing, I've been an accidental consultant, if you will, and operating as a consultant when I had my 9 to 5, which is a common story of people that they're in their 9 to 5, they're thinking that I want to be an entrepreneur full time, so they're actually in the business. So I was actually able to test some of my ideas on my colleagues while I was actually working. And I was able to carry a small book of business while I was working. So the transition, I mean, there's definitely some bumps along the road, but I wanted to make sure that I had kind of an understanding. But I got my first real retainer. Now I love the question. What did it look like then versus my organizing my content? Miles different. And I would say one of the biggest differences is defining who is my audience. Who is my audience? And I love the fact that you talked about fear. And I think in the beginnings, I was wanting to take a client from any and everywhere just to have clients. And there was the idea of like volume would meet revenue. And that was my naivete of like, the more I worked, the more clients I got. And the busier I was, the more successful in year 1 and 2 I was being. And I didn't realize that I hadn't really defined my audience. I hadn't defined the tiers of my offer structure. What was I offering? What was the suite? And not only, the most important thing is realizing that as a solo practitioner, I only have so much capacity. And I think one of the most novice things that I did in the very beginning was look at it as a project hourly base. And I think once you get to an executive level, you're realizing you're not bringing an hour to hour, you're coming to the table with your value. And your value has a more executive value proposition to an organization because of your years of experience. So I think that is one of the most important differentiating factors of my first client. My first kind of book of business was just kind of the hourly hustle, and I had no time. I was overly spent. I was also under billing because I wasn't coming to the table value. I was coming to the table with a structure was just based on kind of project and hours. But now, as I'm more experienced and have, I would even say to define audience, I'm bringing to the table value, and that is what I offer in terms of the tiers of service offering, a much stronger position. And I would also say too, choosing the type of clients that I want to work with, because in the beginning it was almost like Pac-Man. I just need to keep on working, and I'll take anyone who needs services. It's just a fear of like exactly. But now it's like I really wanted to cultivate clients that really were reflective of ecosystems I was interested in. So I'm interested in economic development, workforce development, social determinants of health, and I wanted clients that really were reflective of that. But the most important thing is building a framework, kind of an investment ready framework for them. They have to have like the political will within their organization where they can even absorb a multi-year funding. So not every client is really ready for that or really ready to make those changes. So I had to make sure that I chose clients and they recognize with working with me is that they are going to be maybe pushed in a different way, and they're really ready to receive not only advisement, but implementation to get them in front of funders that are wanting to invest in multi-years and real partnerships.
Yeah, and you know that this is fantastic that you are sharing so many lessons learned. And you know, I'm just curious about what is something like one wish or one thing that you wish someone had helped you figure out faster when you were building your business at the beginning. If they told you this, what could change?
You know, I wish someone had always told me, almost kind of buzzed in my ear every day, don't compare yourself to anyone else. Don't compare the pace that you should be growing to anyone else, and really revel and find joy in your own journey, incremental steps that it takes to get there. Because I think at the beginning I had these ostentatious ideas for growth. Mark was others that I saw doing what I thought that I wanted to do. And then I wish that I had listened to, or maybe kind of reinforced daily, that my growth, my journey is so unique. It is beautiful, and I should be excited by those incremental accomplishments to get there, and really find joy in that path, that road that it takes to get there, instead of looking across there yonder over someone success points that you may see on social media, and comparing myself to them, because you really do lose a lot of your own genius in that. And like finding and really celebrating those incremental pathways. I think that is so important, and I still find myself reminding myself that it's so important to celebrate those incremental success points, and not compare myself to others.
Yeah. Absolutely. And talking about celebrations, can you share with us like a story or a recent moment that made you feel proud of this path? Like, yes, this is why I do it.
I was recently invited to give a plenary discussion in New York City for an organization that focuses on economic development for small businesses, which is kind of part of the ecosystem that I'm working in. And I was invited to give a plenary session on how they can start their annual fund year one. And I was tapped to do this, and I was excited to do this, one, because it was a classmate of mine in graduate school, and two, he had been seeing the work that I had been doing from infancy, from the year one, and he had been following my growth. So him inviting me to speak to his board members that are, high achieving Fortune 500 executives, and him trusting me to be able to talk about not only my expertise, but for them to receive the advice on how to really build the revenue and diversify their revenue with individual donors in this market. In this in the environment that we're in, was really rewarding, and not only because I really have so much value and respect for him and his organization, but it was also a testament because it was well received. It was well received. We ran over time, and I realized too in that moment, as I'm engaging with these leaders across the city, these celebrated leaders, that it was also a reminder that I know this work. I'm passionate about this work, and I'm able to deliver my expertise that really resonates. So it's one thing to have like expertise and to know the issue area that you are that you are kind of focused on, but how can you effectively communicate it to those that are not familiar? How can you effectively train those on what you know so intimately and so well? And I think for me, that was a big celebratory moment for me, because I was able to effectively communicate something that I'm so knowledgeable about, but in a way that really resonates with those that are actually really at the front end of doing the work.
Yes. And to me, that was also about trusting yourself and trusting the process, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we were talking about skills, we were talking about past experiences, we were talking about structures and systems. What's one strength or skill from your past career that turned into a secret superpower in your in your business, in your own company?
That is a great question. My superpower is coalition building and being collaborative. And I say that because when I worked in built out development and fundraising offices for these hospital systems, and when you work in that capacity, you have to engage with every leadership at every function across a hospital campus, from finance to legal to those that work in community engagement, to those in the C-suite. And you have to get them all in one accord, not only in one accord, sometimes in the same room, agreeing on vision, mission, and where the revenue will focus on, and the process on how to do it, and the systems that will be used to track that. So it is definitely a herding of cats, if you will, but I was able to kind of refine how I was able to kind of coalition build those that have different ideas of something important as budgeting and investments and partnerships. And for me, I've refined that over time, but that's something that I've had to, dare I say, I've enjoyed. I think I've definitely come to enjoy doing, working with a cross sector of organizations, of a cross-sector of organizations, of institutions, and really doing coalition building. And that's something that I definitely learned and honed in from my development days working across hospital systems. And so today, my work really resides in not only kind of raising funds for nonprofits and also helping funders refine their impact portfolios, but also how can we get multiple funders and multiple nonprofits to come together to support ecosystems. And that's something I'm really excited about now. And there's a lot of stakeholders at the table. And that's something that I've been fairly successful at work here.
Yeah, and sometimes it's even being in the middle, right? Like you're in the middle of sides of organization, and you somehow have to be in between, and you are all in all that conversations, right? And I'm so glad that you are not canceling your past experiences, because this is what I see in women who are transitioning from their corporate world. Like, okay, so let's forget what happened to me there. I am starting from scratch, which is a big mistake to me, right? And Jamalia, I want to, yes, and if you have something to add, that will be perfect.
Yeah, no, because it's so funny that you say that too. I've seen twofold where people say, I want to be an entrepreneur because I've had a horrible experience in corporate and I just want to start over, tabula rasa, clean slate. And for me, I totally get that too. Sometimes there is a kind of like a tragic experience, but for me, what I'm able to pull from is those amazing experiences and a lot of the rubs and the mountains that I had to climb, and were maybe even unsuccessful at climbing. And I think actually some of the mistakes, some of the trauma, some of the pain of working in corporate, I was able to leverage towards my business. And I say that because that kind of goes back to the faith walk, whereby there's ways that I realize are best practices that I'm able to institute in the way I coach and I train leaders to be more effective, because I saw it being ineffective in the corporate sector. So I think that you shouldn't necessarily, they're not mutually exclusive. I think that they kind of refine who you are as an entrepreneur.
Yes, exactly. And, I also want to go somewhere, want to talk about the past moments. And I want to talk about that in an honest way, because the question is about burnout. And you just mentioned that there's so many women who are leaving corporate or 9 to 5 because they were burned out. But somehow, accidentally, they are recreating the same burnout, building their own practices or building their own businesses. So have you ever caught yourself recreating the same pace or pressure? And, how or what helped you shift it, especially while still holding ambitious goals in high-impact work?
I'm nodding my head up and down because I'm agreeing with you. And I'm like, yes, I was definitely recreating that. Part of the reason why I left kind of the corporate side was a burnout, and feeling kind of out of control, and not even having the time to celebrate any success, or even what that would even look, or even feel guilty, quite frankly, for celebrating success. It was always on to the next thing. And did I recreate that, or do I find myself recreating that? Yes. And I think because sometimes us as women, it's just kind of a go, 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 and almost a fear of pausing, a fear of stopping, a fear of not being able to reflect. And when I found myself kind of going through that and not having anything left, it was really scary, because once I got a professional coach. And I think everyone should still have their professional coaches that they probably might have had in the corporate sector, but also professional coaching, and having your own personal board of directors around you and your colleagues that really can also hold you accountable is really critical, because the burnouts can definitely happen. And I had to take accountability, because again, I wanted more and more clients, kind of the passion idea, thinking that was success, and not realizing that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, to have more peace, to eliminate the toxicity that I came away from. But dare I say, I was actually creating it because all I knew in terms of what success was. And I had to redefine what success is, and not one that's validated by a calendar that is completely full, or validated by awards that may not carry as much meaning to me. But there is a level of peace that I found once I really redefined what success was, and that was really important to me. And I did that. And you talk about tools, that came from establishing a stronger network with membership associations. But I would say, being for me, I was unapologetically intentioned with finding others that were doing similar work, that could either be a direct colleague, a sounding board, also strengthening my relationship with mentors, and so I wouldn't suffer in silence, and also leaning on to, again, if this is a faith walk, for me there's also a spiritual element to this too. So for me, once I found myself getting into those points of those stressors of burnout, I know that something is imbalance. And sometimes also be honest about time management as well. So for me, I really have to rely on my network really holding me accountable, and then really go back to systems. My time management.
Yes. And thank you, thank you for sharing that, because, well, I think that all of us who are transitioning from our corporate world into 9 to 5, we're losing this structure, we're losing this system, right? Because we were there, not alone, right? We used to have a team, or we used to have peers. We had that sounding board. We have a boss. We had a boss, right? Who was telling, okay, this is your goal. Good job. You're on the right way. Right. But now we are deciding everything.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. That used to keep me up at night, and I felt like, talk about feeling guilty, because I was like, if I'm relaxing, something is falling through the cracks. Do I have the luxury to relax? Oh my God, wait a second. I slept in too much. That's not good. That's not good. And I was having anxiety about the idea of relaxing and kind of like having a level set and thinking that things would be calm. I was almost kind of getting into a groove of constantly doing. I'm going to be very honest with you. My first 2 years of it, I would wake up in the middle of the night and kind of refine like a proposal, or like make sure that my week was accounted for, or I was responsive to a client. And it was just, I felt like that was being more responsive and more responsible to my business. And I really had to take, I had to have a come to Jesus moment, if you will. And when I was kind of sharing these challenges with others, I realized that because I came from a trauma-induced trauma and being induced with trauma was normalized in the corporate sector. That's all I knew. And I had to be responsible for, what does peace look like to me? What does my capacity really look like, where I have a level set and I can effectively communicate. I can have a great night's rest, because rest really kind of level sets the intelligence and your communication for the very next day. I had to be responsible for defining that on my own terms. And that is also that defining moment, which I think you're always constantly kind of shifting and adjusting. You are responsible for that, and I'm responsible for that. And I realize that I can't blame that on anyone else but myself. And I'm responsible for my rest. I'm responsible for time to, turn the computer off and take a walk and make sure that my diet is okay. And also, quite frankly, one thing that I also had to learn how to do, and not fear of losing anything, is time away, and even to be very transparent. And I realize this, to be transparent with your clients, that this is the time that I will be away. This is the time that you can't contact me, that you can't contact me. Because in the beginning, I was like, you can contact me anytime and I'll respond. But having guardrails over my capacity, my physical self, my spiritual self was really important. And I realized that I define that. So that's something that I've learned, and that I'm still kind of honing, in all honesty.
Because you know that all the things, they are part of your structure. Right? So all those guardrails, all those boundaries, they are not nice to have. You have to have them.
Oh, absolutely.
You are recreating the same burnout.
Yeah.
So, Jamalia, when you hear the phrase "a business that feels right," what does it look like for you in real life?
Business that feels right. A few ways that I could take that. I feel like what I'm doing, I go back to me feeling like I'm called to do this work. It doesn't really feel like, yes, it's the job, it's my career. Feeling that I'm moving in the right direction. Something that I heard recently on kind of a lead-up entrepreneurship podcast was being able to make decisions at a faster rate. Not recklessly, but at a faster rate. And when you're able to make decisions because they're rooted in trust and your gut, and that has been refined because you've done the work, you're coming from a place of intrinsic knowledge of yourself, belief in yourself, confidence, and confidence because you've actually done movement out there in the classroom of the real world. But you're able to really make decisions at a faster rate. And I've realized in this last year that I turned down a client because it didn't quite feel right, or I'm getting a new certification and decided I'm not going to get this other certification, which comes with a lot of investment. But I know this new one, it is reflective of where I really want to go. It's worth the time, the investment, and the community that I'll get. And I know that ultimately this is a business, an investment that feels right. So I think that when you talk about a business that feels right, when I hear that comes from like a gut check that is really honed because you really trust yourself. You've honed that trust because you built confidence, and that confidence really comes from really doing the movement and doing the work, and also making mistakes and learning from those out there in the real world.
Yeah. And I was about to say something. So we are so very well trained. We have skills, we have knowledge, we have background. We are sitting here. But how to connect our beautiful brains with our hearts, how to trust ourselves and our intuition and gut. All the things all together. So you have the feeling like, well, this is right, this is wrong. And I also been there. I invested time and money, huge amount of money, into something that I realized it won't work. It won't work because I don't like it, and I don't like it because I have some reasons behind that, right? So, and sometimes we are, it's like we are dragging that suitcase without the handle. It's not easy to throw it away. Like we
can be lighter.
But we actually don't need it, right? So, and that's interesting. And this is all coming from our experiences. This is all our lessons learned. And this is all about us being bold.
Right.
This is the thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and well, I have a last question, and actually, it's my favorite kind of question because it always tells me something deep about where someone in their season of leadership is.
Hmm.
The theme song. So, if your business had a theme song right now, what would it be and why?
So funny that you say that. Well, okay, this is what instantly pops into my mind, and I actually can see the video of, dare I say, Destiny's Child, where they have that song "I'm a Survivor."
Yes, but you are
I'm a
not
survivor.
surviving; you are thrilling, right?
Yeah, because like they're like in the jungle, and they have like their fatigues, and she talks about how she's a survivor. I'm a warrior. I'm a survivor, and I really do resonate. That's what instantly came up when you said theme song, and I like the idea of the outfit that aligns with that too. One thing I'll say about that too, I every morning I listen to a podcast, but there's a motivational kind of mantra that I have that follows me through the day, and that's kind of my armor. That's my outfit. That's me preparing for what come what may. And there's not there's a survivor mentality with that, and I would dare I say a winning mentality with that. And so for me, I like to arm myself with kind of words of reinforcement, power, and kind of a survival instinct. So I would definitely say Destiny's Child, I'm a survivor is my theme song.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And you mentioned the mantra. If you open to share that with us, that would be wonderful.
Okay. Actually, if you don't mind, I think I did have one. Okay. This is one that I've been really resonating with, and kind of sharing this with how I also coach too. And it says, clarity comes from motion, not before it.
Yes,
So
exactly.
clarity comes from actually moving, doing the work. And I get inspired by other people's ideas, and it really almost hurts me when people kind of keep them to themselves. And the world deserves to see what you're thinking, the vision that you have. And often people say, well, I don't really understand it yet. It's not really kind of workshopped yet. But clarity only comes from really sharing your rough drafts, putting one foot in front of the other, and testing it out in the marketplace, testing it out in the classroom. Like I said, that's the real world. And then you really do build the confidence. So I do believe that clarity comes from motion and not before that. And that is one of the things that I live by. And I have kind of unapologetic fearlessness in that. And I'm okay with the feedback that I receive, because ultimately, once I say it out loud, it has a sense of realness.
Yes, I love that. I love that, Jamalia, and thank you for bringing so much clarity and grounded leadership into this conversation. And before we wrap, I want to say this to our listeners. If this episode gave you a new way to think about impact, leadership, sustainability, or even your own next steps, would you do me a quick favor? Share this with someone who is building something meaningful. And subscribe, and leave a comment. And if you got a story of your own, I'd love to hear that. Just drop I have a story in the comments or message me. And if you are in transition right now and you want real support, reach out to me. Let's talk. And if you want to learn more or connect with Jamalia, you can find all the links in the description. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you for having me.